Hello.
Hello, Claire. How's the audio coming up?
I can hear you fine. We are live.
Oh, already.
Yeah. Or
Fantastic.
did you want to say something to me in private?
No, 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 no. I'm good. Is this my Koraniyule or is this just a pop-up stream?
Well, I think it should be your Koraniyule since you have so little time now. You hardly see us anymore.
Yeah, it's true. And I've heard that the moment I'm in the chat, usually it's a fake account. So yeah, I just don't have a lot of time, unfortunately.
Well, I deranged everybody just for you.
Yeah, because I was banned in your chat.
Yeah, so I deranged everybody so nobody can say, ooh, you couldn't say, somebody with a wrench has been banning you.
Mm, okay.
So
Well,
how
it's
are
good.
you?
Well, I'm good. I'm very busy. So like, finally, I have a Friday night. It's just me alone, and I, and of course you. But yeah, that's it's a very rare occurrence nowadays. Unfortunately, I would say, because sometimes I do miss it. But I do think the streaming sphere has fallen apart a bit. I think people still are doing it, but I've seen Luke, but now he has about 14 or 15 viewers, and he used to have like 100 or 120. So yeah, things
I
are
mean, but
changing.
what about the quality of the streams? Because I sometimes think, is it really just one person watching me? You know, I mean, I think every time I stream on the stream, I'm losing subscribers. Every time I stream, I lose subscribers. Maybe they're just doing this to demoralize me, just to stop me from streaming because I think they might make me think, oh, better not stream then if I'm losing subscribers. But I don't care really. But maybe the psyops, being
I
conducted on all
doubt,
of
I doubt,
us.
I doubt it, Claire. I think just the streamer sphere is not what it used to be.
Why
Um,
not? In what
I think,
way it isn't it?
well, I think people have been demoralized. I don't think the right is what it used to be in 2016, 17, 18, or 19. I think yeah, people have been greatly demoralized because, well, they haven't really gotten what they wanted, have they?
I mean, they've kind of given up on Trump and all that sort of thing, but this Kanye West thing, it's like everybody started perking up. Ooh, he said he liked Nazis. Ooh, suddenly we're full of hope, and I thought you pathetic losers.
Well,
If that sort of thing gives you
it
hope.
is it is a bit ironic if like the only thing the white nationalist movement can have is a black guy talking their talking points,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
who's
I don't-
bipolar and obviously not right in his head.
well, yes, yeah. I mean that is the thing, and I
And now they
yesterday,
suck his dick. They're so
well, yes,
happy.
I think that does literally happen because I think Nick Fuentes, let's be honest, he's a confirmed homosexual.
Is
Let's
he
be honest about
really?
this. Ah, come on. I mean, we can't go like if you're 24, you've never touched a woman, even though you're so popular on the internet. That doesn't really happen if you have a normal heterosexual, I don't know,
Okay, look at it
sense of
this
self.
way. Maybe he's afraid of getting into a relationship with a woman. I mean, I don't know what does he say anything about feminism?
Well, yes, I mean he has this whole ideological spiel, but I mean, come on, like if you're
Well, but
20,
if he says
come,
things
come on,
against feminism, then women will reject him, and he's
no,
just forced to rely on members of his own sex, sharing his views for the moment, as the Greeks and Romans did, in the olden days.
well, I mean, it can be it can be for the moment, but what I think with a person like him, I mean, he says publicly, it's like for the moment that he doesn't do anything until he writes the meets the right person. But I mean, come on. I mean, if you're 24, I know when I was 24, I basically wanted to fuck every woman that
Yeah,
was
yeah, and if you
decently looking.
if he did, he would be compromised because any woman that he fucks will be a feminist,
No,
and
no, no.
and, and
I
he'll
mean,
be and if the sex is good, he's gonna give up his political
no.
principles for her.
You haven't seen the whole fallout about the AF movement, America First movement. Um, so apparently he had this companion or his like biggest supporter. called Jaden, I think his name was. Well, Jaden had a girlfriend. Nick Fuentes didn't like that very much, and
Jaden is a
basically,
boy or a girl?
yeah, he's a boy. He's a boy.
Okay.
Also pretty young, and well, basically, he went to his bed and looked at a black light if there were not any sperm spots in his bed. I mean, that is massively creepy, and I would say
Sorry.
massively
What
closeted
happened?
homosexual.
Sorry. What did you say? What?
He went with a black light looking for sperm spots.
Why would he do that?
That's a very good question, Claire.
Sorry. Who looked for sperm where?
Yeah. Well, Nick Fuentes and his other male companions, because they were so how would you say disappointed that he had a girlfriend. Because I mean, he sets himself up now as some kind of incel cult. He says basically, fucking girls is gay. Fucking women is gay.
That's a bit of a what's a word, misnomer. But I suppose he's
Well,
saying,
look. There have been, especially on the extreme right, always these sort of homosexual cults. Vincent can talk really well about this, and they basically think that if you do too much for women, you're considered effeminate, and that's why, for them, sort of gayness is the ultimate sense of masculinity. So I think it's
because you're not
probably the case.
compromising your principles in order to please a woman who otherwise might withdraw sexual access, right?
Well,
And
I
then
think.
you'll be, well, then you might be forced to be gay or rely on your own hands.
Well, apparently he does like rely on his own hand a lot, and he is not just into normal porn, but is into very kinky porn. So I mean, we can't just blame him to be an asexual. I think he's just a rabid homosexual, a closeted one, which I think is pretty much the case for much of the extreme right.
Well, I mean, we know that men in prisons go a bit gay because they have to do it with somebody.
Yeah, but okay, man. These are sort of homosexuals that are. How would you say that they're homosexual at the moment? They do it maybe, but they're not like they're not. It's not their intrinsic. How would you say sexual preference? And I think with Nick Fuentes, it's something else.
Well,
Yeah.
this is pure speculation. I mean,
Well, look.
I guess,
If you're 20, come on, 24, you're famous. You can get girls if you want. You're not having them. I mean, come on.
yeah, but because he knows, as I would know if I were him, that if I meet the wrong kind of girl, she's going to betray me, or I will,
Okay,
just give
okay.
up my political
But
principles
Claire,
just to please her.
but Claire. I mean, you have a couple of drinks. You see a nice person at the opposite side of the room, and then at some point it's gonna happen, right? I mean,
You're saying I'm going to be
yeah,
picking
either you're
people
frigid, but
up
that's gonna
in
happen.
bars, and now I'm just not going to be able to stop myself, and then I'll be politically compromised. Imagine that if that happened to me. I meet
Oh,
somebody nice, and then I have sex with them, and then people say, "Oh, you're that Claire Gore. You can't have sex with anyone." The way you go on about things, you're done for.
yeah, but then you get all these like weird revelations about him looking for, I don't know, like these sperm spots with the black lights.
Well, I don't believe in all
He
that.
no
I
no no
mean, I think my
he's
problem
personally
with him is
telling
that he's
telling telling
Catholic.
telling to Jaden that he likes like really eccentric porn with like trannies and shit like that. I mean, come on.
Well, I don't know if it's true or not. All kinds of lies are being told, and it's so easy to make up shit.
A man who's 24 and who hasn't had sex with a woman is suspect.
Okay, so you suspect him of being gay, but at least he's not compromised with him.
He's already compromised. If you say if you say you're here for masculinity, and you don't want to spread your genes, I mean you're compromised.
Well,
That was
okay. We were talking about the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans, and we know. I think they practiced pederasty, didn't they? They'd find a boy, and then they'd have sex with him until he grew a beard or something, and they were allowed to do this sort of thing until they're 30. So I guess
well, not
that was
really.
30.
I
30
remember.
was the maximum age.
Well, it depends a bit on society. I remember that I read something about Sparta. For example, Sparta. I don't know if you read The Republic or The State by Plato, but then I mean that's modeled after the Spartan model, and so like I think men had to be 25 or something to marry a woman. So yes, it's just a bit like the prison situation, right? There's no sex available, so they go for something that might not be their, how would you say, first inclination. Let's say.
Yeah, because I guess, men just have to do it. They can't just sort of rely on their imagination or their own hand. They just have to do it with a living, breathing body.
Yeah, but I mean, like, if it's your first preference to sleep with a woman, and you're 24 and you have the opportunity to do so, and you're not doing it, then I think I don't know. There's something weird going on.
He's saving himself up.
Well, and there's his mannerisms. I mean, like, I'm not saying that every man that has some kind of like effeminate traits is necessarily homosexual, but with him, yeah, there's quite a lot.
Really? I mean, I don't really follow him, but he doesn't seem particularly effeminate to me. I mean, I suppose, a lot
Have you
of...
not have you not seen his hands? How he uses his hands? Come on.
What, does he flap them around? I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know.
yeah. Like a bird.
Oh.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
anyway, I don't support him because he's Catholic. I just have to take my position against Christianity. And I'm quite pleased that, more and more people know my position and can repeat my position. And I think it's important to save the West from,
Save the
their
West from Kanye
religion,
West. Save
from
the
Christian
West from Kanye
liberalism.
West. Holy fuck! I mean, this whole shit show has been incredibly entertaining. First, I saw this clip of Jimmy Kimmel, like ridiculing Nick Fuentes. So like, now he's really on the big news.
Who is this
And
person? Sorry, can you just explain a little?
Jimmy Kimmel's like it's a night show in the United States, and it's quite a big one. And he was ridiculed for being like saying that girls are gay or like fucking girls are gay, and like every sex is gay.
Oh, so
And
so
I mean,
he's
yeah,
proposing gay fascism, is that?
no, well, basically, he's proposing insultum, but I mean, everybody can read through the lines. I mean, okay, it's like if you have an ecosystem like this, you have some weird people that agree with him, like the MGTOW people, but you can't if you're not like somebody like me who is just in a normal social environment. You have to see how other people see this. They're just laughing, like they're laughing till they die, almost. Like it is just really hilarious.
Well, I mean, you obviously find it funny that people could be, well, giving up, okay, sacrificing sex for their principles, right? And I mean, maybe we should credit Nick Fuentes with this, social conservatism thing, and social conservatism is no sex outside marriage. So maybe we can credit him with a little bit of that, maybe.
No, I just think he's a repressed homosexual who
But okay, but anyway,
who's in denial and starts to hate everything he is, and that's why he has this like conservative trad philosophy because he's basically fighting the demons that are inside himself.
the reason why I set my standards, conveniently low is because of this. Because you're also sex obsessed. So if I said no sex before marriage, you'll just all freak out and have riots everywhere. So
Yeah, I think so.
I just say, well, I'm just going to punish unmarried parents, and it's like, well, okay, fair enough, considering there's modern contraception available that people could use.
All right, so yesterday I was watching Duvet on your show, and I would say if Duvet is a friend of the Jewish people, I don't think.
I'm a friend of the Jewish
Well,
people.
I think the Jewish people don't need any more friends like that. Oh, holy fuck! I mean, he says like Jewish people are. I mean, anti-Semitism is caused by Jewish behavior, categorically. I think that's just a wild, crazy statement.
Well, anti-Semites would agree, and maybe too it's a bit, I mean, actually, Rabbi Misraki says that. It's like, this is terrible. We're just going around provoking them, and one of these days they're gonna flip their lids, and and Trump has tried so hard to please them, and they still throw it in his face, and then he's getting friendly with all these anti-Semites, and they're all really excited now, and maybe it will be another Hitler situation. So you can't really fault Dubit for
Yeah, but it's a crazy situation because I mean, uh, anti-Semitism, and I don't know why he always uses the word counter-Semitism, which I think is very suspect if you use that word. But anyway, anti-Semitism is caused by the perception you have about Jewish people. That doesn't necessarily have to involve that the Jewish people have to do something to tick you off, right? So this can be based on ideology. For example, the exaggerated notions that David has of like Jewish power, Jewish involvement, and also, I mean, Jewish homogeneity and sense of group and interest. I don't see many Jews having actually the same opinions anywhere. And then he refers back to all these stats that he has to have, and he doesn't give any sites or he doesn't give any sources for them either. So yeah, I'm a bit disturbed, I have to say, about
well, yes, he seems
David.
to be provoking it more, but I suppose
But but David is like a cliche of what Nazis want Jews to be, and that's his role as well. That's why he got actually popular in these spheres because he says, yeah, basically you're right about most of these things, and it doesn't mean he doesn't push back on some things that might be really outrageous, but he just basically believes that anti-Semitism is caused by Jewish behavior, and I'm not saying that anti-Semitism is not like sometimes caused by Jewish behavior,
well,
but
it's as they say, six of one and half a dozen of the other. I mean, we'll never be able to tell because there's so many people who
yeah,
they've
but
never
come on,
met a
Claire,
Jew
Claire.
and they really don't like them, and it's like, well, it's
Yeah,
not
but Claire, you,
rational.
you you wouldn't believe, for example, that Jewish people poisoned all the wells in medieval times to spread the plagues. To, and
No,
then,
no,
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 but
and
that, for example, that is an example of
but
people who
but but
have
Jen
beliefs about
believed
Jewish
it.
people that
Jen
are
believed
erroneous.
the blood libel story, or
Yeah,
she was prepared to believe it.
yeah, no. But the question is, if David says Jewish of anti-Semitism is caused by Jewish behavior, you're saying these things. You're saying the blood libel. Yeah, that might be true then. I mean, poisoning the wells and creating the plague. That
Or
might be true.
maybe not even that. It's just saying, we just Gentiles just find Jews annoying because they have all these Jewish privileges, and they might be envied for having the status of God's chosen people and being so apparently undeserving of that title. Maybe a lot of it is just envy. They think, oh well, Jews have it all because they're so blah blah and blah blah and blah blah. And
Yeah, I mean, like yesterday, the revelation that I did not know that this guy Pete Davidson, that's now fucking Kim Kardashian, I mean Kanye West's ex-wife, is a quarter Jewish, and he's been obsessing about him for quite some time. I mean that might have some explanatory power of why he's like rating on the Jewish people so much, and his
yeah, but I mean,
business
in a way,
partners that
you
he
can
didn't
argue
like.
that he's being anti-Semitic. It's like, well, if the man who was screwing your wife wasn't Jewish, would you be going on about it in quite that way?
Yeah,
And you
well,
wouldn't be able to say well, yes or no.
yeah, I know. I know. Remember, the OV had an enormous Oedipus complex. You know, he had this thing for his mom, and then yeah,
His
this
stepfather's Jewish.
Jewish guy fucked his mom, and then I mean that's when things went wrong.
But I mean, okay, Orthodox rabbis would say that mixed marriages creates it causes anti-Semitism because you'll get your ex who'll just hate you and say, oh, it's because you're Jewish, that's why you're so bad to me, I know Gentile, well, anti-Semites are male and female, and they've had a string of Jewish girlfriends or husbands. And,
Yeah,
and, and
I
they're
think it
saying
just goes
it's
wrong.
because they're Jewish that my relationship didn't
Yeah, but
work
I
out with
think it
them.
goes wrong with people who have a propensity to have maybe mild or actually quite extreme forms of mental illness. So let's be honest about Kanye West. This guy is mentally ill. I mean, like really mentally ill.
Yeah,
And
because if
I'm
you
not.
say weird things,
But I mean, he's completely crazy.
yeah,
He's saying like,
saying that he loves Hitler.
have you seen him and his like little doll Netanyahu? What was like Nets? I can't even like. He had these dolls that he was like playing this game in, pretending to be Netanyahu with a very high voice or something like this. This guy's just gone completely off the rails.
I know,
Like
and
completely.
what I find so disgraceful is that they're all these sort of these white nationalists just so excited at the nonsense that he is spouting, he's gonna lead them to, I don't know, the promised land or something. The way they're so excited and so thrilled, I
Yeah,
can't bear it.
they can't understand the irony either. I mean, it's. I mean, this is irony with. I mean, it's just fucking hilarious.
Have you seen the one by Joseph Cohen? Do you know Joseph Cohen?
Yeah. I actually appreciate Joseph Cohen very much. Yeah.
He
So
made a short video saying that, oh, look at all these pathetic white nationalists, worshipping Kanye just because he said a few things about the Jews.
yeah.
That one is it's a nice short one.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if you can watch it, I'm up for it. But
Well, the thing is, it won't. It'll be silent because I'm using
oh
OBS,
yeah,
and
no, that would be a pity. But I
yeah.
think Joseph Cohen,
I'll
like
post the link later, but you can
he's like
find.
one of the only people that I know from these years that I actually think is mentally sane. So I mean, if just go in this. That's something I'm actually taking it quite seriously. I mean, we have
Well, he does
probably have
go around
disagreements about
deliberately
Israel and things
provoking
like
the
that.
Muslims at Speaker's Corner. I've seen him.
Yeah, but I mean, he's the same guy. I mean, he knows what he does. He's not. I don't think he's like a standard provocateur. I think he does.
I think he is because a lot of these Jewish organisations, it's not just Jewish. They go around seeing domestic violence under every bush, or anti-Semites or Islamophobes or whatever, and then they say, oh, this is terrible, and you need to give us more money so we can solve the problem, so we can report more incidents of anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, misogyny, or whatever it is that they're doing, and it is, well, it's harming. Well, it's
I don't know. Like, the problem with Joseph Cohen I have is that he is a Zionist, so he is much more busy in what happens to Israel than what happens in the UK. And I think that, if you're a Jewish person living in England, it's better to concern yourself with the politics of the UK, or you have to move to Israel. That's another choice. But I don't know, like this support for Israel. I get it, like if you have affinities with that kind of thing. But I think sort of the energy he puts into it, it should better put into the place he lives.
yeah, but I mean, he's obviously earning money from what he's doing, and that's why he has to go around talking about anti-Semitism and accusing, well, even Jews of being. I mean, Cohen accused Duvid of being an anti-Semite.
Yeah, and Cohen is right about that.
Well, I
I
mean,
agree
it's
with
quite
Cohen
funny.
about
I
this.
saw Charles Moskowitz and Duvid accusing each other of anti-Semitism. It's like
Yeah,
they're calling each other Nazis now.
but Duvet has ideas that are undistinguishable sometimes from a more sophisticated anti-Semite.
So who? Who?
Who?
Sorry, what did you say? Who has ideas that are indistinguishable?
Duvet.
Because he kind of accepts the narrative of the Jews
He
being in
accepts he
control.
accepts basically all the premises, and the main one is that Jews are responsible for anti-Semitism.
You know, a few of them do actually admit that. Have you heard of Rudy Rockman?
No, no, I haven't.
Well, anyway, he's kind of saying, well, they blame us because maybe we are responsible because we're supposed to be, doing stuff for them and we don't, and
Uh,
and actually
look, no,
Rabbi
no, 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 no.
Mizrahi kind of says the same thing too.
Yeah, look, I don't say that some Jewish behavior can cause anti-Semitism. I agree, like sometimes that can happen, but to say that categorically Jewish behavior causes anti-Semitism, I don't think that's true. Or anti-Semitism is caused by Jewish behavior. I think that's not true.
Yeah, because I mean I also
Because
agree with that because
many
people.
of the allegations that are leveled at Jewish people are completely absurd and far out. Look at Kanye West.
And also that I do know people who have never met a Jew and hate them. you know, they really
Yeah,
hate them. It's
yeah. I
like,
mean,
well, have you ever met one?
but
It's like,
sometimes it
no,
gets
no,
really
no, no, I
crazy.
just hate them.
You have this guy in your chat. I think it's called like Born Again Harapan or something like that. Is that
Oh
like
yeah, yeah, he's a bit over the top. Yeah.
yeah, he's a bit over the top, but he's also dull and how do you say? He's not the most brightest light out there, and he has this idea, like I'll say, yeah, Jewish people cause immigration. The reason why we have a mass immigration in Europe and the United States, that's just because of Jewish people. I mean, a blatantly absurd claim. But then he, as a Pakistani, lives in the UK,
No, he
and then
lives in
he doesn't
Canada. He
have
lives in
any
Canada, and
or in Canada or whatever he lives in. He lives
yeah.
in a Western country. And I'm like, come on. Like, I mean, you're blaming the Jewish people. Why don't you just go back?
Well, yeah, because they kicked out their Jews, and the Pakistanis kicked out their Jews ages ago.
Yeah, and see how that worked out for them. Just like, I mean, it's not that these societies are great places to live in. I don't think it has any correlation with Jewish people. I think whether they're there or not, I don't think it would particularly matter
It's just the
economically.
fact that they exist and they have this status of being God's chosen people, and it drives a lot of Gentiles mad.
No, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I mean, yes, initially, anti-Judaism, let's say, for example, Christian and Islamic anti-Judaism was really religiously based. Why don't you guys convert, and why don't you see what light Christ or Muhammad brought onto the world? But in the 19th century, late 19th century, it turned into ethnic and racial prejudice. So I don't think that ball really flies after the late 19th century anymore.
Well, okay. Jews who talk about it say, once upon a time they hated us because we didn't agree with them about their, about Christianity, and then they stopped believing in Christianity, and they found another reason to hate us, there's an Aesop's fable saying I can't remember what, but it's like if somebody's determined to hate you, they'll find a reason to hate you. And
Well, I think that's true, but I think then you have to look much more like at the core. What is it that people hate? And I think primarily with white nationalists, and I don't know what applies to Kanye West, but white nationalists is they primarily hate themselves. So what they accuse the Jews of doing being only out for themselves, uh, stealing money, all that shit, having degenerate behavior. That's actually what they're doing themselves most of the time. So I think it's a primary source of self-hatred projected on the Jewish people.
yeah, and they're using Jews as a scapegoat for their government, because they're obviously, feeling some pain about something or other, and then for some reason they can't, believe that their own political classes can be so incompetent and so callous and indifferent towards them, and they're saying, oh, it's the Jews, they're making our political classes be mean and indifferent to us.
Yeah, which is also, I mean, like I went to a good university, so I know the elites of my country. I talk to them a lot, and I know what they think, and I also know how incompetent they can be. They're not much smarter than you or me, which yeah, it is a problem, I would say. And then,
Yeah, and it's a problem of representative democracy. It's a problem of liberalism. It's it's like actually, I don't want to say this. I know it's kind of your ancestral religion, but Christianity is not exactly helping people be smarter.
well, I don't think the other religions are doing that, and the other forms of states are also not doing that. It's interesting what's happening in Iran now, for example. Right, you've seen the big protests. People are not very happy with their governments.
Yeah, yeah, because well, they're not managing the problem properly. I mean, I think Iran should have secular Quranism with Iranian
I
characteristics,
mean,
and
but they are already doing that. I mean,
no,
like
no,
if you
they're not
think
doing it in the way that I would do it, but because actually a lot
they're
of them are
effectively,
on the pill. These
but
women
Claire,
are on the pill.
they're effectively a one-party state because if you don't support the system, you can't even get into the party, right?
Well, it's the same here, isn't it? It's the same here. If you have the wrong kind of views, you can't be a journalist. You can't be you can't be on TV. You can't do
Well, there will
lots of
always be this
things.
isolated publication that you can work for. You can work for VDR, or you can work for extreme left organization. I mean, it is true that the window of free speech or free open discourse has narrowed to a
It is pretty
considerable
narrow.
degree for the last couple of years, but it's still the case that you can basically open any organization and lobby for your kind of view.
I don't know. I think the culture war is really between people who support marriage and family values and people who don't. Okay, so I basically know, well, I know quite a lot of Jews who've had their accounts deleted, and the social conservatives are right wing Jews, and they're not allowed to say their thing. And I remember Dennis Prager complaining and complaining that he wasn't allowed to say his little thing for conservatism. So I think a lot of them are getting jittery, and so I don't see it as a Jew and Gentile thing. I'm saying that the
No, no, no.
clear
Me neither. I think this is a schism that is well, division that is the fault lines are non-religious. How like what kind of community you're from? They're conservative Muslims and conservative Christians and liberal Muslims and liberal Christians and liberal Jews, and so that is not the schism. Um, but I wanted to turn to your other points. The other country you praised is China. And have you seen what they are doing with the lockdown nowadays?
Well, yeah, I know that the Chinese are protesting, saying we've had enough of lockdown, enough already,
Uh huh.
and
But you see, like your favorite party state model is going against the wishes of the people and having this absurd non-COVID rule,
the
which is
zero
completely
COVID.
untenable. It's completely untenable.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe it's an act of arrogance on the part of the Chinese to think they can, get to zero COVID because they,
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the problem is also like in a system like that, course correction is very difficult. That's why I like more representative systems than I do one-party
I
states.
don't see any correction happening here in the
Well, I mean,
West.
yeah, we have opened up, and the Chinese have not.
No, the Chinese, okay, they often some frolic of their own with their stupid zero COVID policy. So, they could give it up and just say, well, we'll just have to, give
They're
up on
not.
all that.
They're not really opening up because they're not as susceptible to popular pressures are as we are in in Europe or the United States.
I think well, I mean, they're obviously concerned about, people not being happy, and I'm sure, however absolutist you are as in your dictatorship and whatever, you just know that that at some point, if you go too far, the people will snap and then they'll come and get you, and you shouldn't push your luck because
Yeah,
they're
but I
always
mean,
more than you and they know where you live.
dictators push their luck all the time.
Yeah, when they go mad with arrogance and
But it's what they
overindulge in
do. I mean, like I
hubris.
don't know if you remember first, like before the Arab Spring, and at Hosni Mubarak from Egypt, he had a suit. made out of all the little dots, all the stripes on his suit were made of diamonds. And I think that suit was, I don't know, a couple of million euros, like that kind of, yeah, easy, ostentatious money grabbing just doesn't happen in liberal democracy. I mean, for all its faults, I think a liberal
We
democracy
just
is
go around building Holocaust memorials to really piss the plebs off. Are you doing that in Holland?
well, we have a new monument in Amsterdam called the Name Monument, and I don't think it will piss the plebs off. I think, I mean, what you see here in this right wing ecosphere is quite a bit different than what you see in normal day, normal life, even more normal politics. Like I don't think even the right wing parties object to a Holocaust memorial. Another one, they don't.
Well,
And the plebs, as you call them, don't mind.
right. Well, I thought, it's usually the plebs who are anti-Semites,
And
but
that's,
anyway,
well, I mean, anti-Semitism.
it comes
Uh,
from the lower orders because, it's like if you're right at the bottom, you just hate everybody above you. And
well, I
Jews are
mean,
above you, and the elite, the liberal elite, and, well, just anybody above you, you probably hate. You're just a rancorous peasant, because you're right at the bottom, and and as we know from the Ten Commandments, envy is just one of the things that the Ten Commandments keep telling, the Jews not to indulge in. It's a
yeah,
deadly
well, look,
sin.
I think it's people who are at the bottom, but I don't think they're working class. I think people who are not working are the people who create like wild ass conspiracy theories. Also because they have too much time on their hands and they're not practical. They're not practical about how to survive, not practical about how to pay the rent because the government is doing that for them. So yeah, I think it's this group of people with too little money and too much time.
But I mean, I think the assumption is that usually the people at the bottom are the most racist, the most Islamophobic and anti-Semitic, and people at the top, the affluent, the influential, they're just sort of more secure and they don't have to go around hating people.
Well, it was not entirely so. For example, if you look at Germany, like the people who were really at the bottom, there were people who voted for the Communist Party. And it was much more sort of like lower middle class and then artisan class people who voted for the Nazis.
But I suppose I mean there is this thing about Christianity. It's like it just the entire narrative is against Jews, and if you go back to the origins of the New Testament and how it came to be, I don't know if you have we discussed Joseph Atwill who
No,
wrote Caesar's Messiah.
we have discussed Joseph Atwill, but I don't believe his theories are either interesting or sound. Or yeah, I think his ideas are just like Alex Jones style uh, history history use. Yeah.
But anyway, whether Jesus existed or not, the fact is that the New Testament was not compiled, till decades after. I think 50 or 70 years is what Wikipedia says. So, and
Yeah,
the things
I think
nobody
that's
really
fair.
knows, and the first people who used Christianity as a religion were the Romans.
Well, no, I mean, like, oh yeah. So it was written in Greek, yeah, so not in Latin.
Well,
So yeah, but I
no,
mean,
no. I mean, the first state that used Christianity as a religion was the Roman. Was
yeah,
Constantine.
but I mean that was quite a lot later than. I mean, first there were plenty of persecutions. I mean, Nero and
Yeah, yeah. They were just being thrown to the lions and all
yeah.
that.
I mean, and he was definitely not the only one. So there've been a lot of persecution of Christians. So I think it's a bit strange that you have like this conspiracy. Oh yeah, the we're we're gonna make this conspiracy to make the Jews more mild, and we are going to create a religion for them. And then it turns out that it's not much more mild and much more powerful and evangelical, and that actually turned to be the end of the Roman Empire. To be honest.
Yeah, yeah, because okay, my thesis is that Christianity has been failing and failing and failing and failing, and these silly Europeans still can't work it out. It's like Constantine used Christianity to prop up the failing Roman Empire, but it failed to do that. And then when the Roman Empire fell, the idea was still around because Islam hadn't been revealed, and the Christian missionaries went all over Europe and got all the barbarian kings of Europe to accept the bargain of Christianity, which is
Yeah, and this bargain was accepted quite willingly. So apart from a
yeah,
couple of
until the
crusades, well, no,
Reformation, and
well,
they couldn't
let me
stand
just
it
speak.
anymore.
Yeah, no. So like apart from a couple of crusades, Christianity was spread mainly by conversion, and also, of course, by leaders, and then forcibly converting their peoples, but
Yeah,
not
it was
like Islam.
forcible
And Islam,
conversion.
Islam was primarily spread by the sword.
No,
Of course,
no,
there are
no, no, no.
definitely
Okay,
exceptions to this, but
I
primarily it
I
was
don't think you
spread by the
understand.
sword.
I don't think you understand, Conops, that once a king accepted the bargain of the Christian missionaries, their subjects had to follow the monarch's religion.
No, well,
That was
absolutely,
the whole idea.
absolutely,
Look up
absolutely.
at the Edict of Thessalonica.
Yes, yes, of course, I do accept that. But the thing is, you have to have a critical mass for people to have enough, I mean, support, so that a leader can convert.
No, no. I mean,
So it was, it was.
what a leader would do is like, well, I've accepted the bargain of Christianity, so I'm going to be putting up the idols of Jesus and Mary, and I'm going to be smashing your idols of I don't know, Aphrodite and Zeus and whatever it was that they had. Yeah, because
Well, I
if
don't
you've
know. I
been
don't
to
know where
Rome
you.
and you've
I
been
don't
to
know
the
where you get that from. So, for example, I'll take an example of my country, the Netherlands.
yeah, you're a
For
bit
example,
mixed up. Is
we
it the
had we had a bishop in Utrecht, and they got all these like missionaries to the north, and yeah, couple of these guys got killed. The most famous one being Bonifatius, and or Boniface, and you see, like slowly, people started to become much more Christian. And I mean, the example even in Africa, much more recent. You see, in Africa, Christianity has spread largely peacefully. In just a matter of decades, it has reached all the parts almost of Africa. Quite
Yes,
quite
it's easy
interesting.
to spread your religion if you're the imperial master. It's because your imperial subject will think, oh well, you conquered us, you obviously much more stronger, and you are militarily supreme. You have all the money, so we'll use your religion because obviously your religion has something to do with must have helped you become powerful. So
Well,
then it's
not
easy to spread.
necessarily. I mean, like in Islam, the conversion process was much more slow.
No, we know that Islam spread through the Middle East in 100 years. I mean, in a
Yes, by
century.
the sword, by the sword, but the
Yeah, yeah, but
population.
and the sword
No,
was.
whoa. The population of most of these countries stayed a majority Christian and Jewish for quite some time. So actually, initially, only the elites were Muslim.
Yeah. But and there was this part in Muslim history because the bargain was we've conquered you. If you want to keep your old religion, you pay us a jizya, and if you want to join us, we can go and attack the next country along. And most people said, oh well, we'll convert to Islam since obviously it's done something
Well,
for you and made you, and we'll go and
it
attack
took a
the
very,
third country, and it just went
it
on
took a
and on
very
like a
long time.
domino.
It took a very long time of humiliating treatment for people to slowly start becoming Muslim.
Yeah, and then it would take generations for there'll all be all these sort of pagans and Christians and Jews and but eventually they think, oh well, we'll just be mainstream, it seems all right, and then they convert, because when people convert to religion, it's not usually because they see the truth of it, because even if they see the truth of it, they're not, they don't want to alienate mum and dad, and and if they convert, it would be in order to marry somebody, or in order to gain better job opportunities and stuff. And that in Europe, it's like if you're even the wrong kind of Christian, you get cancelled or get burned at the stake, because
Well,
this was how.
that was also the case of being the wrong type of Muslim. We have to admit that. I mean, the Sassanid, the Safavids and the Ottoman Empire have fought for centuries against each other about Sunni and Shiite predominance. And I mean, the same is the case, like actually now in the Middle East. But I don't know if we have to talk about all the shit that's going on there at the moment. I mean, it's not a society you or I would like to live in, would it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's my thesis that the First Amendment is based on chapter 2, verse 256 of the Quran.
Yeah, it's absurd ahistorical idea. Yeah.
Well, it's not, because there is a White House Quran and it belonged to Thomas Jefferson and it's still there, you know.
All right. So yeah, I think I also have quite a dubious. I have a Quran in my I have a
Great.
Quran in my cupboard, and not just one. I think four Qurans.
4, that's impressive.
So if somebody would I don't know, I would die, and 100 years later, somebody would write down what I say, and then he would say, this idea is just inspired by the Quran. That would be just absurd, right? Just because I have a Quran in my cupboard, in my closet.
Yeah, but it's not just, I mean, I know a few people have tried to argue that, oh, we all buy books and we don't read all our books, and Jefferson just bought it and he never read it. And it's like,
Okay, but
well,
you
actually,
do.
there's a record of him writing in the margins, and actually he bought two because his library was destroyed in a fire, and he just went out and bought another one, which meant that his first one was destroyed, and it meant so much to him that he went out and probably bought another one.
But just because somebody has a book in their on their shelf doesn't mean they endorse the content of the book.
Well, we know he read it because it was all, well, he read it in order to negotiate with the Barbary pirates, and he was
Yeah,
a lawyer.
and then what did he do? He bombed the shit out of the Barbary
Yeah, but
pirates, did he not?
well, eventually he did. But anyway, he had to read it in order to negotiate with the Barbary pirates, and we're just assuming that he read it properly, right? And anyway, there was no
Maybe
religious
he wasn't. Maybe
freedom
he wasn't
for
impressed. I mean,
Christians
like
or
what?
Jews.
Maybe he wasn't impressed, just like I have. I've not been impressed.
Well, I think he was impressed because look what he did. Look at what he did to the Jefferson Bible. He basically, well, he basically cannibalized it. He just cut out bits that he didn't, he thought was well. He cut out the Pauline epistles.
Yeah, I would do the same. But does that make me into a Islamic sympathizer? I mean,
Well, yes, in a way, because he was sent to
am I an Islamic sympathizer, Claire?
well, we have to interpret, his
I mean,
actions.
you called me an Islamophobe, so I mean, am I an Islamic sympathizer
Well,
who
I
has
don't know. I
many
don't
books
know if
about
you
Islam?
have any message you want to
You you
leave
you
to
you
posterity.
you called me an Islamophobe.
Well, you
So
are.
I mean, what?
Well, you
Yeah, well, okay.
are.
Then I am I an Islamic sympathizer? Okay, so there you go. I mean, I have many
Well,
books
okay,
about Islam in my bookshelf. So
okay, but you're not credited with having drafted the First Amendment. You're just an Islamophobe who has a few Qurans because, well, how come you have so many copies? They keep being
well,
given to
I
you.
because no, well, I had to buy them for university, for one thing. So I have an English version. I have two Dutch versions, the grammar version, and another one. And I have an Arabic one.
Oh, Did you read Arabic?
No, no, no. I just thought it was a beautiful Quran. I bought it in the in Egypt. What did I buy it again? God, that big mosque. I can't even think of the name now. So long ago. Al Azhar. Close to Al Azhar University. That's why I bought it. Yeah. Mm. So yeah, that doesn't make me somebody who like innately sympathizes, and
Okay, well, I'm
like
not saying that you're a sympathizer, but you know, you can deduce that. Well, I mean, there is a record of his letters, you know, saying he didn't think much of
yes,
the
there's a record of it,
Trinity.
but he doesn't say anything about that. That's the problem. Like he
Yeah,
wrote a
well, they were
lot
afraid
of
because
letters to
people
John
would.
Adams. No,
Did,
private. I'm talking about private letters to John Adams, for example, and he didn't write anything about that. Wouldn't have that been an important thing to mention if he did get inspired by the Quran?
I don't know. Maybe they were destroyed. I mean, because you know, historians do
Yeah, but
destroy.
that is if you say like absence for evidence is evidence for absence, that is I don't know. It's a
Okay,
way
but,
of
but anyway, you
logic.
can't really deny that he read the Quran and the First Amendment. You know, if it's based on any verse in any scripture, well, it's not based in on the Old Testament, and because we already know Jews get stoned for breaking the Sabbath and get stoned for bowing before idols, and we know that
Yeah, but
Christians didn't have any freedom of belief either, and Islam's the only religion that talks about freedom of belief, and there's a verse in it. So
no, there's indeed one verse of it, and
that's enough.
unfortunately, the Islamic scholars have tried their best to curtail that verse and make it how would you say so specific that it only applies to Jews and Christians once they've been conquered. So I mean, it's not.
Well, that's
Uh,
not fair. You've been to Indonesia, haven't you?
yes, but I mean, even
Well,
Indonesia is
Indonesia
part of
is,
the.
is, is the most populous Muslim country in the whole wide world, isn't it?
Yes, your point
Yeah,
being.
and you've been to Bali with its Hindu temples, haven't you?
Yeah, and these temples, I have to say, like slowly, like the religion, the other religions are trying to be phased out. That's what the national government has been doing. That's what the steps that they took in Papua New Guinea, that people couldn't have their like traditional clothes anymore, for example. They've tried many laws to make that happen.
But I'm sure they're not doing anything to the beautiful Hindu temples in Java and Bali, are they?
Well, not yet, but I mean, in Egypt they have tried, and I actually don't know the history of Indonesia that well that I can say for sure they haven't tried. I mean, in the episode, the pyramids of Giza, I think it was the son of Saladin. He tried to blow them up.
Well, yes, I know they are conflicted. It is, because I've talked to a few Muslims and they say, "Oh, it's not allowed." And then, but I come from a Muslim country, and well, there's plenty of pagan temples, so it's a matter of interpretation. And I'm saying, the
Yeah,
Quran is
you just happen
flexible
to
enough.
hope. You just happen to hope that for some years there's an interpretation that is pretty much reasonably tolerant. But you see that also you had the Emperor Akbar, who was, by the way, probably not even Muslim. But then you had Aurangzeb, who destroyed all the Hindu temples. So I mean, I think
Yeah, yeah, and we know what
it's
Nietzsche said
completely
about
risky.
interpretation. It's a function of power and not that of truth. And obviously, you want a sensible interpretation of the Quran. And I'm saying, and
Yeah, but
this you can
what if
only
you don't?
ensure
What if you
if
don't? What if you don't?
then it's too bad because like the Americans,
Risky.
everything is risky because you can have rules that nobody follows, and I mean, like the Americans, I mean, out of all the people in the whole wide world, the Americans are supposed to be the best protected because of their constitutional rights, and look at them now. Just look at
Mm.
them; they're just too afraid to even talk about the First Amendment, and then they think, oh, well, we don't need the First Amendment because it's never
No,
helped us.
the First Amendment is actually functioning quite well. I mean, the fact that there are these big tech companies censoring people, it doesn't mean that people still can say what they want without being arrested. Try to say something very similar in Austria, or in Germany, or somewhere else. So I mean, the First Amendment, limited as it does protect people from persecution because of their ideas. I mean, Kanye West is still not in jail, is he? And if he's going to jail, he's going to be in jail for tax evasion, which I think he probably should pay his taxes. It's about that time, Kanye. It's about that time.
Yes, but I mean, they can do things to you like put you on a no-fly list. I think Ann Coulter's piped down a bit because she was put on a no-fly list. So there are other things that they can do to you, short of shooting you. That's gonna make you toe the line.
Yeah, I would
I mean,
still
like
say,
cancel your PayPal account and
yeah, but that's
sack you
what
from your
companies
job.
yeah, but that's what companies do. That's not the national
Yeah,
government.
yeah,
And
and so what we have in the West is this crazy system where the fourth estate has become the first estate.
oh,
That is,
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. I think that's a huge problem. So finally, we agree on something. Yeah, I think that's a huge problem. I think the
and
fourth
it
estate
can
now.
only be solved with secular Quranism.
It can be solved with a lot of things.
Like
For one thing,
what?
just very simple, breaking the tech monopolies up, which I think
Yeah,
is a
yeah.
step
So,
we
so
should
you
take.
have to propose. I mean, I think every country has some kind of antitrust or monopolies commission, and they're too scared to say anything. And we know from history, from Elizabethan times, it's like the monarch is getting so much money from these monopolies that she gave a royal charter to, that she didn't want to say anything to upset these monopolies. And of course, the British East India Company is, well, it was the European version of BlackRock, isn't it? And even the monarch is scared to tell these people off because they're doing so much for the country and getting so much treasure. So, there are all these sort of background stuff that maybe a lot of people don't get, but I guess they'll be blaming the Jews for it.
Oh
Because we
yeah,
can have
well,
all these rules, we
that's
can have
always
all
it's
these
an
rules and
easy
never
answer.
follow them. I mean, it's like some cook with a recipe and cooking crap dishes because they can't be bothered to look at the recipe, and it would be really stupid to say, the recipe's no good, the recipe's no good, let's throw out the recipe book.
Well, if the recipe book is totally shit, yeah, I mean, of course you have to throw it out.
Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, are you diagnosing the situation correctly when you think, oh, well, the cook isn't following the recipe? Well, the solution must be to make sure that the cook follows the recipe instead of throwing the recipe book away, which is what a lot of people seem to be thinking of doing. I mean, the Constitution,
Yeah, but you're talking about the United States, but I
well, I'm
mean,
actually kind of talking
let's
about
talk about
the.
the countries. Let's talk about the countries where actually the Quran as a book of recipe is used. They're not doing much better. I mean, the tech monopolies, same system, same problems. And in some problems even worse. I mean, even like a very, very wealthy society like Qatar. I mean, God, like, would you ever like to be in a place like that? They have to have. I mean, what is it? 80% of their population has to be migrants. The native population does work. The only thing they have oil, and if they didn't have oil, that would be just a desert place that they were for centuries. That's not a model.
Well, Qatar is where Dubai is it? Or no, no, that's
No,
UAE.
no,
Yeah, it
no.
says UAE.
Dubai is in the United Arab
UAE, yes,
Emirates.
yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I
I
haven't
mean,
been to
Dubai
either.
is the same story. Same story.
Well, I mean, at least they develop it, and a lot of Westerners go and work there.
Well, they could because of the oil, but if you see Arabic countries that don't have any oil, I mean, they're in a very terrible situation.
Well, I guess they'll have to think of something. But I mean, okay, well, I'm more concerned about Europeans, really.
Yeah, but the problem is, you say, "Well, I have this solution," and actually, apart from a couple of nuances, this system has been tried and is being tried at the moment. by many Islamic countries that are not doing so faring so
Okay,
well either.
what system? Look, these Sunnis, they're not really, these Gulf states are just just having a kind of veneer of Islam because they've all been liberalized. I mean, the
No, I mean
only Muslim
they're not very liberal. I mean, even in Qatar, if you're a homosexual, you get you'll be in jail for seven years.
well, if you get caught, committing a lewd act with another man, but I think, gay people can somehow manage to find private property to do their thing with each other, without getting
Well, but
caught.
that's not it's not my point. I mean, my point is that these countries are applying the scripture.
Okay, but well, if you ask Muslims, it's like, because it's you have this conversation with them. Oh, Islam is shit, blah 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 blah, and then and then you ask them, well, which country in the world, which Muslim country applies Sharia properly, and they'll say, oh no, none, because I'm familiar.
Yeah, I mean, but that's a cope, right? That's what communists used to say. They used to say, "Oh yeah, no, this is Stalin," and that is, of course, totally
But
not
it's the same with the
representative. Oh yeah, but
Americans.
this is the same kind of logic. So you say, "Oh, this is Stalin. It's not representative communism," and it's, "Oh yeah, that's Fidel Castro, but he's not representative communism." Oh yeah, this is Mao. He's not representative communism. Like all the time, like there's these excuses. While
Well, the
the
excuse is that the cook doesn't look at the recipe, and so we have to sort of,
Yeah, but you can
try.
say that about communism as well. I mean, the recipe is ideal. Why does it always turn out to be a nightmare?
Because it's not enough. Basically, dialectical materialism, historical
Hmm.
materialism, is not enough. And this is part of the
Hmm.
same story of the the war between labor and capital, and it goes back to the Romans, the patricians and the plebs. you know People will just never be happy. The rich people will think, oh, the poor are so lazy, and the poor will say, oh, the rich people, they always exploit us. And that's why you have to have rules that kind of keep things on an even keel, or make things seem fair enough. And you can only and there's no point having these perfect rules that nobody follows, so you have to somehow make them follow the rules. And I think imposing a belief in God is more likely to make them follow, because then that they really try to follow it properly, rather than just pretending to follow it, just for the sake of appearances. So and that I think is the secret of religion. I mean, that's why people say you have to believe in the thing really, really, in order to get the full benefit of it.
Well, yeah. So have you converted to Islam now?
No, I can't convert to Islam because
see, see, come
no,
on.
no, but actually, to be fair to me, a lot of Muslims say, "Oh, we think you are really, because you're doing so much for the cause." There you go. I'm doing much more than these so-called believing Muslims who don't quite dare go as far as I do. And it
Yeah,
has
I
been
think, I think, I
acknowledged. It
think,
has been
I think, I
acknowledged.
think your idea. You think it's a very original idea, but I mean, Gabel Abdel Nasser, like his idea of secular Quranism. I mean, it's similar, very similar. Yeah, we had Sukarno and Pansasila, which we talked about
Yeah,
a couple
because
of
there's so many
months
ways
ago.
of doing it. We know that
Yeah,
Indonesia
but
is
I mean,
civic nationalist,
it's
but
not original.
Malaysia
It's
is,
like
is ethno-nationalist. And
no,
there's
but I
so
mean,
many ways of doing it.
Afro nationalism. Yeah, I just think it's well, in the current sort of alt right way of speaking about it, it's a completely mistake. I think that people should be peoples in their own country. I think people should I don't know, celebrate language, the things that they have in common, history, common traditions and culture. I think that's great. But as soon as it becomes like racial or exclusatory, I think it's a rude setup for failure. And particularly if it always goes down into this purity spiral, like we have to be more homogeneous and stuff like this. You have to be relaxed
I
about
think we
people
can
having
have a
different.
modus vivendi with secular Quranism. That's what I've been trying to tell people. It's like,
But
maybe
honey,
white people would
this is
just
my
not.
Koraniyule. You're talking about your.
Well, you just came here to throw rocks at my idea,
No,
so
no,
carry
no, no.
on.
I didn't come here to throw rocks. I was interested in a couple of things, but then you steered the conversation into to secular
All
Quranism,
right, I
like
won't
an
talk
old,
about it. What else did you want to say? Let me help you say it.
oh yeah, I was curious about Vincent Bruno. So, what's going on with him? I really do know. So first he was adamantly opposed about like the no hide laws, and now he's a no hide follower. Did I get it correctly, or what's going on?
Well, he's urging people to support no-hidism, and I'm saying, no, Vincent, you should be supporting secular Quranism, and then, you'll get the attention and interest that you need. And he said, no, 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 no. So we're having this
Okay,
back
but
and forth.
you're skipping so many steps. Why the fuck does Vincent Bruno wants to support no hide laws? Why?
Because
What created the switch? Why does he think now the way he thinks? What's going on?
okay, it doesn't really make that much sense to me, even in theory. But I've asked him this a few times, and he has consistently come up with the answer, which is that he wants social conservatism to rear its ugly head, and it's the no-hide social conservative head is much uglier than secular Quranism, which he says is not scary at all. And then once enough people embrace no-hidism, then the social liberals will get scared and crush it. That, that,
Ah,
that's his reasoning.
yeah, it's insane. So he wants to accelerate a movement that has now barely 20,000 people. What did he say?
I think he said
20,000 people.
500,000 people globally, and I'm saying, well, people won't, it's like for Muslims, they haven't even registered that there is this thing called rabbinically guided no-hidism. But I'm sure as soon as they really they get wind of it, they'll say it's stupid. You can't have, if you want social conservatism, you should come to Islam and, stop your nonsense about being treated like second-class citizens and having to go to rabbis to ask them to help you with the no-hide laws.
Yeah, I think he's. I don't know. I think sometimes Vincent has a bit of the same problem that Kanye West has. I think Vincent is insane. Uh, Vincent was he not preaching for incest and stuff like this?
Yeah, he's given up on that. So,
Oh,
yeah, he may be
good.
bipolar.
Oh,
I think
holy fuck, that's good.
yeah, yeah.
Holy fuck.
Well, I
Oh
mean,
wow.
okay. Up to a point, it kind of made sense because he was saying, animal breeding. I mean, there is a lot of incest, practiced because, if you're breeding dogs, you kind of want your Dalmatians to have spots and whatever features that you want. So inbreeding would be used. But I heard yesterday that in the olden days, it was just very usual for people to marry their first cousins because at least a family would know. Well, we know what you're like. So first cousin marriage was what just operated everywhere, really.
So have you seen that the paintings of the Habsburgs? If you go and you go to the Prada, you see these beautiful paintings of Velasquez. You see these really ugly faces in it. These are the faces of the Habsburg. The Habsburgs have tried incest for quite a long time, and I mean there were like even people. I don't know. I forgot who it was, but a certain Charles, maybe Charles the Sixth or the Seventh. I don't know. Um, like basically couldn't almost move his jaw anymore, and that's what you get with incest.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the English call them chinners, wonders. The people who don't have chins.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, there's no need for that because we are well past the age of monarchy, right? The age of monarchs, of kings. So we don't need to do that.
I bloody hope so.
And I think the West, particularly the Europeans, should understand the situation because the monarchy is really an anachronism, and it doesn't really help I mean, particularly with the British monarchy, because the British monarchy is enabling the American empire.
Well, yeah, I don't care so much about the American Empire. I think it's
Well,
like large words. I mean, the Americans really powerful states. They have a
but it's been bad for white
hegemony.
people. Okay. This was the conversation I had with Daniel Sienkiewicz, who's somehow gone quiet. But anyway, I asked him whether the American Empire has been good for white people, and he immediately said no. It's been terrible for white people. So
Yeah, but I don't think in these terms of white or black people. I think it's a bit of a
okay. A further development this week in the UK was that Westminster City Council has said we're not going to call non-white people in Britain BAME anymore, and BAME stands for Black, Asian, Minority, Ethnic. We're going to call them the global majority. So that's what they said. You'd be able to find that in a
the
Daily Mail.
global majority. Really,
Yeah, and
the global
this means
majority.
Conops that you
Uh,
white people are the global minority, and this is in your
we,
own
we we have
right
we have
homeland.
been the global minority for quite some time.
Okay, so you're indifferent, but anyway, this is a way of just basically telling white people to shut up because they're now a minority, and this week the British official national statistics released the census of last year, and all the nationalists are so upset because the number of white people, the percentage has gone down by 6%, and less than 50% of British people identify themselves as Christian, and they're really upset. And in addition to that, this week the lady in waiting at Buckingham Palace was just thrown out for daring to ask a black woman where she came from. Have you heard that story?
I don't care about that story. I mean, it's
Oh,
not
it's
really.
all okay. I'm just saying, if I were white, I'd be damn worried. But okay, you're saying it doesn't matter. But anyway, all Lady Susan Hussey did was to ask this black woman where she came from, and then this black woman said, "It's racist to ask me where I came from," and and.
Yeah, well, I mean,
And then
it's
she cried,
ridiculous.
and,
I mean,
and,
like,
and Lady Hussey is no longer the lady in waiting, and Lady Hussey is the
yeah, but this
godmother of
this
the
has
Prince of
much more to
Wales.
do. This has much more to do with sort of like woke ideas,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
and
you
then I
don't
think
think it affects
that's the
you?
problem. But what you're saying is like, oh yeah, like some percentage of non-whites. I think that basically does matter. Like if I look at my circle of friends, plenty of people that have come from different backgrounds, but they have embraced Dutch citizenship, and actually most of them are like their parents come originally from somewhere else, but they have grown up here or they're like mixed. And I don't think. As long as you don't make these things into identity groups, that will matter very much. I think British identity can be well, people can be a different color. I mean, like Meghan Merkel or something like that. I mean, can you really find the difference between her and a black-haired woman? I think this is all bullshit, and I think you're preoccupying with something that is just completely pointless and a waste of time. And I think
Okay, I mean, it doesn't concern you because you don't think in racial terms, but in a way
no,
you are because you are an Islamophobe. So I can't quite understand, And then you do go on about
you call
your
me an
European
Islamophobe. You call
heritage
me
and
an
your.
Islamophobe. But no, the only thing I object to is a majority Islamic religion in my historically Christian country. That's what I
Yeah,
don't
but
appreciate.
since you don't believe in it, then nature
No, it has
abhors
much
a
more to do with
vacuum, and Islam will
culture,
be muscling its
how your
way
culture
in.
is informed, what kind of values you have, and also what kind of traditions you value.
Yeah, well,
So
what
yeah, I
tradition?
think
The
people
most
no
important
people
human
should be
tradition is marriage
no
and family values,
people no but no
and the
people when they
distinction
come
between male and
people when they
female.
come to a new country they should absorb the values, the history, the culture, and everything that is important about this place, the architecture, stuff like this. um, and that is important to me. If you have red hair, or if you look a bit more brown, I don't particularly care about that.
Okay, I mean, Millennial Woes wrote something about. I mean, he was kind of saying, well,
Well, in between sucking dick, yeah, yeah. Sorry, go on.
he was talking. I don't know if you've heard about Nigel Farage tweeting about the statistics released by the Office of National Statistics and saying shock horror, London, Birmingham, and Manchester are now majority non-white cities. Oh dear, isn't this terrible? Blah blah. So he went on like, and then Sajid Javid, the mayor of London, said, "So what?" And I don't think Nigel Farage responded, or he might have on Twitter. I don't know. And there was this kind of essay by Millennial Woe saying, you see, you're a civic nationalist, and you can't really answer Sajid Javid, but if you talk about race, and you'll be laughed at, and if you're a civic nationalist, you can only talk about culture and economics, but really it's about race, even though you say it's not, and he went on in this vein.
Yeah, and I think it's a mistake. I also think, like, look, the proxies, white and non-white, are sometimes quite important, because they sometimes refer to something larger and deeper. That the fact that people have been living for a very long time in the same place, and they are very attached to certain traditions. I think that matters, and in general, it's the case that these people happen to be white now. But I don't think that will be the case in the future. Like,
I mean, does it make you a bit sad? I mean, I suppose that was the reason why the South Africans, who were kind of Dutch, weren't they, imposed apartheid, because they wanted to think that in the next century there will be white people still living in Africa. That was the whole point of apartheid. And now, I mean, does it make you sad to think that maybe in 100 years' time, there might be sort of white people in Europe, or you don't
well,
care?
there will be white people. It's just a
There will
completely
be a
idiotic idea.
minority.
Like, there will be mixing, people coming up with like crazy phenotypes. Yeah, that's what happens when people are mixing, and we've been mixing for centuries.
Okay.
I mean, the reason why the Spanish, for example, don't all look blonde hair, blue eyed, is because we had an influx of Muslim immigration, of Muslim, how would you say, incursion. Well, then these people got kicked out or converted, and then I'm not gonna say, oh yeah, you black haired people that have become Spanish and have all the tradition of the Spaniards, that you're not quite Spaniards. I mean, that's ridiculous. So, I mean, for me, it's a cultural thing.
Well, culture is fluid.
Yes,
Culture
exactly.
changes quicker
Yeah,
than
and also you can actually influence culture, and so
with
you don't have
and
to you don't have to
religion.
lose, you don't have to lose your identity or your culture. What you can just do is you pace immigration, you let people assimilate, and then everything is gonna be, well, pretty okay.
Yeah, but I mean, they won't assimilate if they don't if they think your culture is crazy.
Well, yeah.
And they see a bunch of sort of neurotic, self-hating white people who haven't got a religion and can't even defend themselves with
Well,
arguments.
I mean, it's completely untrue. I mean, they see everybody, I mean, black, white, Asian, whatever, whoever has embraced the like new sort of woke ideology, that it's not just like white people or anything. They see it happening across the board. So that
Okay,
that's
but I
not.
mean, it is a position of white people that is being lowered. Everybody is. I mean, it's
No, no,
actually in Deuteronomy.
no, it's not white people's like white people whose position is lowered. It's much more that there is this idea of like the white person who is like some kind of like eccentric person that's like above everything and has all the power, and that person shouldn't be in that power anymore. That's the idea.
Oh, okay, okay. Maybe you didn't see it the way I did, but the incident at Buckingham Palace was, somebody comes to your house, you ask them where they come from, and you get kicked out of your house. I think that's what happened to Lady Hussey.
Well, no, people have just become much more sensitive. So if you would ask that, I don't know, 15 years ago, people would be just completely fine with that. But people have become much more sensitive about these things.
I feel sad for you people. You're in denial, and I'm trying to
What do you mean?
explain
What
to
do you
you
mean, you
that you
people, you
because you
racist?
don't believe in anything, you have no moral principles because you have
What do you
no
mean? What do you mean?
religious
You
principles because you
people.
have no
What do you mean?
religion.
What do you mean, you people? Are you racist?
No,
Because I'm different from
okay.
you, Chris.
So
Come on.
now you're saying you people is racist, but I didn't say which people. So obviously you are kind of thinking, oh, is she pushing me to belong with these people that I don't like? So I'm asking you.
Yeah, no, I don't identify with people on borders of race. I have my friends, people who identify with my culture, my society. That's what I like, and I like nationalism as a sort of practical, functional way of being together. But this idea about race, which is, by the way, just nonsense, Claire. Because I mean, uh, every race has been mixed with other races for centuries
Yes, I
already.
know.
You think that the people were talking about the original Europeans? I mean, even 10 years ago, and then they find out, oh shit, no, I mean, oh, there was this like huge migration from Anatolia, uh, like really changing the genetic gene pool, and oh yeah, then there was the Yamaha, like
Yeah, but I'm not even talking about
the
them. I'm just talking
Indo-Europeans, and
about
then you had
me looking
multiple
at
forms of
you
migration. I mean,
people.
we even fuck with Neanderthals and Denisovans. I mean, it's this idea of racial purity
It's not even
is
racial
already a dumb
purity.
idea to begin with, because we are already mixed before we got mixed.
No, I don't mind them. It's not so much race mixing. It's just, seeing this happening to you, and you're also, vulnerable and traumatized and neurotic and in denial. And I'm saying secular Quranism will just put a spine in you, because there is a verse in the Quran that talks about, God acknowledging the existence of tribes and nations and male and female, and and it might
No,
seem very
I
obvious to
wonder.
you.
I wonder what kind of problem. I noticed it actually quite a bit. I was I was at a dinner with some of my woke friends, and we were talking about Andrew Tate, which is very interesting. So like there were people that initially like really were like big fans of the left covering for some of the more misogynistic views that are present in the Islamic community. And now with Andrew Tate becomes a bit of a problem. And so first you really hate Andrew Tate, and now he's converted. So what are you gonna do now? I mean, what are you gonna say now about him?
Yeah, because his
Very
religion
interesting.
protects him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Imagine if he said
Well,
all his
you get,
sexist things, and he wasn't
yeah,
Muslim, they'd hang him out to dry,
yeah. So
right?
it's interesting, but this also brings me back a bit to the thing you say. Oh yeah, white people are sort of low status. By the way, yeah, Andrew Tate is sort of passingly white, but he's not even white. I've heard. But anyway, what the situation is. So if you say something about minority cultures, you don't get the pass. And why don't you get that pass? Because well, it is viewed as dangerous in our society, maybe rightly so, and to accuse minorities for all kinds of behavior, because people are worried of whipping up hate against minorities. So that's the reason why sometimes black people, Muslim communities, whatever, people get a pass for certain behaviors that a white person would be condemned over. It's something to do with
It's
status. It's
racism, isn't
actually,
it? I mean, it's naked racism.
well, I
You
think
go,
it is as well.
they can say the N word, but you can't. They can,
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting how they. I mean, Kanye West is not getting any. It's not getting any leeway because he's black. I think that's actually
Because
quite
it's
interesting.
like, the taboo is like, so somehow Jews still remain privileged, probably because they are small in number. It's like, oh, Muslims are so many of them, who cares? But Jews, there's just so few of them. We have to protect them and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, but they're particularly vulnerable and particularly small. I mean, like, what is the percentage of Jewish people in the Netherlands? I mean, they're like roughly 40,000. That's like nothing. That's like it's the smallest of small of infinitesimal amount of people, and of course, these people are like particularly vulnerable. Particularly if there's such a sort of like conspiratory hate brigade directed against them. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, they've been having an identity crisis for centuries, and it's like, well, what did God choose you for if you're indeed God's chosen people? And God chose you to rank the four Gentile religions, so please do it, and then everything will be okay. I mean, and that's my message to them.
But I mean, but it still comes back to this like interesting. I think actually anti-Semitic idea that once they do rank that, that's going to change anything. I don't think
No,
anything.
it's
I don't
no,
think.
then
I
they
don't
have
think
the route
the
of
idea that
honourable
Jews are
retirement.
powerful enough to actually make a difference in this kind of thing is just like blatantly absurd.
No, no, no. The thing is, the Christians, they run away from me because they know I'm gunning for their Trinity. But also the Jews avoid me because, I'm going to be saying, like, well, if you really believe, I go for the rabbis, if you believe that the Torah is true, the ultra Orthodox, and then, and you have 36 capital offenses, but you don't, and you break them in this life, but you don't get punished for them, then it means that in your afterlife they'll all be sort of piled up waiting for you. All your missed Sabbaths, your acts of sodomy and adultery and idolatry and blasphemy or whatever. It's all waiting for you, and then you'll have to be stoned, and then you have to be strangled, and then you have to be burned, and then you have to be beheaded until all your death penalties are discharged, and then I don't know what's going to happen, but the implication is that if they don't get punished in this life, it's if they literally believe in the whole narrative, then it's going to happen in their next life, and they have this other thing that is also a death penalty, which is to be a citizen of a city that has gone astray, and by that it is meant a city that has given itself over to idolatry, and since half of them live in Europe, which is Christendom, and Christianity is idolatry. It's like, ooh, they've been kind of consigned to hell for quite a while if they lived and died a citizen of a city that has gone astray. And this is something they should consider if they literally believe in it, and the only way they can escape it is to convert to Islam.
Yeah, and they probably won't. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
because, and
so
because
important.
they won't, it means that they're hypocrites. They only pretend to believe in God, just like the Christians do. They don't really believe Jesus is God, but they just sort of say, oh, it's our tradition, and we like going to church on Easter and Christmas only, and we're still going to
Yeah,
call
no, well,
ourselves.
I mean, Jews have secularized in the same degree that Christians have. So, I mean, yeah, they have some big birthdays the ultra Orthodox have, but I mean, other than
Yeah,
that,
but
but
the hypocrisy,
I
I mean,
wanted to
don't you ever
return. I
imagine
wanted to
what would
return.
happen if God exists?
No, I wanted to return actually to something else. I actually wanted to return to Kanye and Milo. You familiar with Milo Yiannopoulos, right?
Well, I know he's gay.
Yeah. So it turns out that Milo, I mean, Laura Loomer, who is also a person. You know Laura Loomer?
Yeah, she's Jewish, and she attended the American Renaissance conference.
Yeah. So apparently, like Milo Yiannopoulos, yeah, he has a lot of dirt on people on the alt right, a lot of dirt, and then Laura Loomer, well, she thought like maybe I keep some dirt on other people as well, particularly Milo. And she wrote this really cool, really critical piece about him. And she has all these tweets with all these interesting things. Like, for example, that Milo is now, by the way, the handler of Kanye West. So it's actually
It's a joke,
rather.
isn't it?
No, yeah, I mean, this is like, I mean, There's like levels of irony I can't even get. Like, I mean, like raiding on the Jewish people, and then your handler is a Jewish person, just like Patrick Little, by the way, who had also a Jewish guy being his like fucking manager. Like, he can't make this shit up. Oh, well, holy
No,
fuck.
no, I mean, if you think about it, it's like, oh, the immigrants have taken over white nationalism.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just one big Jewish plot
And we
full
can, we can
of
do it
Jews and
better.
Jews
Yeah.
and black people. Yeah, that they're running your lives. Well, actually, actually, in white nationalism, they actually do. Holy fuck! But turns out that um, yeah, Milo has all these DMs which he accused. What's his name? Kanye West also of being a homosexual. I don't
Oh,
know
I
if
mean,
that's true. I mean, but
maybe
this is
Conops. I
something.
mean, if anybody accused you of homosexual and you did some gay thing, it's like, okay, I'm cool with that. All right, I'm just not gonna turn a hair.
No, no, look, but like for me, it's not like an issue. It's like, what if I were homosexual? I would embrace it with like all the love I had, you know. But it's not something for me because I don't object against homosexuality. I don't care about it. But I think it's interesting that how you say a movement that is about purity, about tradition, that it has so many of these sort of rabid homosexuals in it. I think that's the irony. And the same thing about like the fact that they claim to be so against the Jewish people, and then they have all these sort of Jewish managers and handlers in it. And I mean, the alt right wasn't it not a term coined by Gottfried, Paul Gottfried, also a
Yeah,
Jewish
yeah.
man?
Yes. I mean, I don't know if you know that UKIP got into trouble. They were saying, oh, these immigrants, blah blah, and undercutting the wages of the locals, and then a few UKIP people high up in the party were discovered to have hired Polish, workers to do their plumbing or something,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
construction
yeah.
or whatever.
There you go. I mean, look, hypocrisy is quite destructive, though.
Yeah.
Because it does really show that you can't sort of practice what you preach and that your idea is in some way untenable.
Well, I just want everybody to know that my standards are conveniently low, all right? And even Vincent said, "Oh, secular Quranism doesn't sound so scary. I want something scarier, and that's why I'm supporting no-hidism." But hopefully, I could persuade him to become a secular Quranist, and then we'll have even more interesting conversations.
Yeah, I think that he'll be another kind of Milo figure, tragically promoting an ideology that wants to destroy him. I don't know.
I don't. It's for look. Okay, this is my plan for global domination. I'm going to get the Americans to adopt secular Quranism with American characteristics, and once the Americans do it, the rest of the West will follow because the Europeans are just the poodles of America. So and then Israel will have to find itself adopting secular Quranism with Israeli characteristics, and then when the rest of the non-West discover that this is where the world is going, they'll do it too. China and India and Russia.
But
And that
but
is my
Claire,
plan
Claire,
for
Claire,
global
Claire.
domination.
I mean, I always evaluate a mind according to how much of realistic ideas they have. This seems to be totally unrealistic,
No,
and you
no,
have
no,
to
because,
admit that
okay,
it
okay, if
is.
the Americans are being sensible, they'll think, what's happening to what
Yeah,
country?
But Claire, is this really the most likely scenario?
No, I don't know if it's likely
No,
or
no,
not.
no, no,
I'm
no.
saying in theory it could
I'm gonna give
happen.
you. I'm gonna give you just like Gandalf. I'm gonna give you a percentage of how likely it is that your scenario will actually play out.
Well, I would have to say 51% because
Mm. Wow. Yeah, I think
because I
you're
have to be
totally
binary
out of your
about it,
mind.
right? It can either happen or it cannot happen, and obviously I'm doing it because I think it will happen. So therefore, it has to be over 50%.
Well,
There you go.
if it makes you feel good, like I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
like if you want to
Otherwise, I
have a
mean, why
mission in
do it
life,
if I
that's
don't?
fine. But I sort of have given up patience to people who can't see the world in the realistic terms. I
I am
think a
being
lot of
realistic. I mean, obviously, I have to keep doing this to save, the Europeans from their own degenerate selves. I mean, in
But you
time,
mean
you will
like
be
you want to save
grateful.
Europeans as an ethnic group, or what's your idea? Like, I mean,
Just,
why do you
the
want to
white
save
people
Europeans?
wandering
Why?
around,
Why?
the vulnerable, traumatized white people who don't know who they are and hate
So
their
you care
government.
so much that they're white? Is their color so important to you, or
Well,
what is
yeah,
it?
I mean, that's how I think of, my friends who are white. I think that's how I think of them. I don't think of them as brown and East Asian or Asian. I
Why
mean,
don't you think about them as friends?
yes, I do, and I think but friends, have an appearance. They look a certain way, and
So it's like that like I don't know, like those sexy black blue eyes that just like holy fuck, Claire. Why do you care about this shit?
well, because I mean, obviously, I have to care about people in order to do
I mean, you can
this.
care about people without caring about what kind of eyes they have.
Well, people kind of look a certain way, right? And this is my association of,
Okay, so you just terribly care about the phenotypes, like oh
well,
the
I
red
just think
hair,
it's very sad what
the
has
red hair.
happened, and I think I can help you.
Yeah, oh, I don't care about that shit at all. I if you were red hair, I think you were an equally atrocious person. I think that doesn't really matter.
Well,
That,
I guess they represent to me, I don't know, a certain period in, Hollywood and, all the movies that I saw and, that kind of thing. And anyway, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well,
So,
yeah. Is that if that makes you
I
happy,
mean, well, I think
if that keeps
I
you
would feel a
alive.
bit sad if white people just disappeared. I mean, I would feel sad if there were
Yeah.
no more
Well, I
white
mean, why
people.
white people wouldn't disappear? They just, I mean, their genes are still in there somewhere,
Yeah, yeah, but
and
I'm
they would
saying it
just
would be
that
sad. It would be sad. I think,
had
a
just
lot
like
of
a
people think, what
little.
happened to
They'll
them?
just have little browner eyes instead of blue eyes. I don't
Yeah,
think that
I mean, we'll
matters.
get over it, but we'd feel a
In
bit
the end,
sad.
evolution is so such a strong force. That's, I mean, who wouldn't say that in, I don't know, 10,000 years you have, or not even 10,000 years, but like in 3,000 years you have people with coming with another blue-eyed phenotype and would be dominant.
Yeah, I
I
don't
mean,
know,
I
but
just
I
don't
mean,
think it's
obviously,
so very important.
you
I
know,
think what is important is civilization, culture, tradition. I don't think these things
and
are very important.
you can't protect your civilization and culture without a religion, and you don't seem to understand.
Yeah,
How are you going to
you can.
defend yourself?
China has for quite some time.
Okay, China. Okay, I think China is a bit weird, but I mean, it has adapted over the, it never said, oh, we have a religion. They always say, oh, it's statecraft. We just know how to run our empire, and, and okay, they had their, war of unification, before Jesus was born, so it's an old civilization, and then they had a dynastic, rule, and what they had was a system of imperial rule, and basically just directing their minds about how to govern their country, and that's what they've been doing. So even now, under the Chinese Communist Party, it is what they have to do. Like, how are we going to govern people? And for China, they have this idea of, are we Confucius? Are we Confucians, or are we legalists? And so it's like Confucius. Yes, he was a nice guy, but nobody really believes that the king has to be so good that people love him and whatever. And then eventually it crashed and burned last century when the Qing dynasty fell. And that was when China became a republic, and when it became a republic, it's done pretty well. And I'm saying that the way forward for us as a civilization, as a global civilization, must be the republic, and we have to dump the monarchy. I know we were
Yeah,
very
I don't want
sentimental
to be.
about it.
It sounds like globalism to me. I don't like globalism.
No, no, no. Okay, but if you don't want to, if you want to keep your monarchy, fine. But the British have to understand that What they've done is basically deprive the Australians, Canadians, and New Zealanders of their identity by pretending that that they're independent countries. They're still part of the British Empire, but the British government is too scared to tell them that. So they think we have our own foreign policy. No, they don't. They're
Well,
all
no,
owned by
they
America.
absolutely do.
No,
Australia
they don't.
definitely has their own foreign policy. It's ridiculous to say that Britain is deciding Australian foreign policy. I
No,
mean,
no, no.
if you're looking at their approach or even their like milquetoast approach to China, sometimes you really see that they're in a particular situation, they're a particular part of the world, and they can make their own choices about
No,
who
they
they
don't,
deal with
because
or
they
not.
wanted to trade with China, and then basically America said, no, you can't trade with China. And America said it to Britain, you can't allow China to install your 5G, even though they're the cheapest and the best. So,
Well,
so, so basically, America's telling
but
us all
no, no, but
what
I
to
think
do,
people in
and you're in
Australia,
denial of it.
no, no, people in Australia have a sense of the balance of power, and I know if
No,
everybody's like,
no, no. What you don't
if
do.
everybody's going along with China, they will be unstoppable, and they can
Yeah,
basically
but they won't kick you around.
decide every dispute in their own favor. You see that what's going on with like Taiwan,
Well,
or you have
how
these
many
islands.
countries has China invaded? How many countries? I mean, compared to what the neocons have done, I mean,
Well, it doesn't mean that in the future. By the way, they invaded Tibet and they invaded
yeah,
India
but
and they invaded.
it's their backyard. China has its backyard too. Unless
Yeah,
you
but
want to say
maybe
everywhere in the world is
if they go a
America's
little bigger,
backyard.
yeah, if they grow a little bigger, maybe Australia is in their backyard, and maybe they don't want to deal with that. Maybe they want to create
Well, I mean, okay, the
coalitions
Australians are complaining.
with different Asian powers to contain
You're
China.
just an unthinking NATOist, aren't you? Because you know that you have to say that you have to be pro EU, you have to be pro NATO, or you'll just get kicked out of the mainstream, right? That's a political orthodoxy.
Well, so you're saying that opinions that I have, I don't have because of my personal analysis. Is because of the social
Yeah, social
situation
pressure
I'm
that you're
in.
not even acknowledging consciously. You just want to be with the cool people. You want to be part of the
But
liberal elite,
if I
and they
wanted to
hold
be,
certain views about certain things, and
no,
you can't.
if I wanted to be in the cool club, I would be yay for every sort of new social trend that's happening, including the trans movement, which I'm not. So I'm actually quite critical of many things that are coming and are popular in the mainstream. So I don't understand your criticism, and
Okay,
I
well,
also don't understand your kind of ad hominem attack. Why can't you just accept that what I think is that I have good reasons to think this way. And I think for a small power like Australia, it's sensible not to go along with everything that China wishes, because at some point they might ask something close to them that I want to take from Australia. I think this is a natural balancing power behavior.
well,
And
I
it
mean,
would be
okay,
sensible to think like this.
China has not been aggressive towards anybody, and we know who has
Well,
been aggressive.
that's
We,
definitely,
we
this
know
is
the
so
people who
not
keep
true. It's
fighting these
so not
world
true.
wars, right? The first, the second, and if there's a third world war, it won't be. Well, it will be Westerners starting another world war, and we all know that it will be because America fearing its decline. Well, it seems that they will just they would rather blow themselves up than you know let
I think
anybody
it would
else
be
take over. I mean,
it
that's
would
how
make much
crazy
more
they are.
sense. It would make much more sense for America to look for allies in Asia that also want to contain China, so that in the end, in Asia, there's not a huge Chinese power bloc which would confront the United States, and then you have a situation like World War I, which I would definitely not desire. No,
No, no,
so
there is already a European war. And every time there's a European war, it becomes a world war. And the Americans are saying, oh, go for it, just keep riling Russia. And if it all blows up, we are an ocean and a continent away, so we don't care about you. And the European leaders say, oh, yeah, let's go
No,
and
no.
annoy
Actually, the
Russia.
people who are most in favor of this war are people who are close to the Russian borders, like, for example, Poland.
Yeah,
Look
because
at
the
Finland.
Poles have a crazy hatred of Russians.
Finland used to not be in NATO, and now they are. Why do you think
Yeah,
they
because they're governed
want
by,
to make?
by silly
Yeah,
women,
because
right?
they feel
They're
threatened,
governed by silly female
because
prime
they feel
ministers.
threatened by the unpredictable nature of the Russian state.
Nonsense. It's bad for them. And Sweden and Finland have two, both have female prime ministers, and they
I
are.
mean, I don't know why you have to change the subject to
No, I'm not
female prime
changing the
ministers.
subject. I'm saying that they're all bought and paid for. Don't you understand that they're
Okay,
bought and paid
why don't you
for?
show me the flows of cash money, and
No,
then we can talk about something. If you're
just
just
by
throwing
looking
this
at the
out
age and the sex
without
of the
any
prime
evidence, Claire,
ministers.
you're throwing this out without any evidence at all.
Well, I can dig it up for you if you want, but the fact is that the prime
Okay,
minister of Finland and Sweden are female.
show me the paper trails. Show me something.
Well, I can't. I
Yeah,
might
yeah, I'm
email
not
it to you,
surprised.
but obviously you can't, at this stage expect me to. But you can
Yeah,
do a
but
bit of
that is mere
googling. How
conjecture,
old
and
is she? How
I don't
old
want to
is
base
the
my
prime
foreign
minister of
policy.
Finland?
I don't want to base my foreign policy or what I think should happen in foreign policy on your sort of wild,
It's
baseless
not wild.
conjecture.
It's not wild. I mean, as for Australia and New Zealand and Canada, you should be aware that the colonial post of Governor General is still there. So Canada, Australia, New Zealand have a Governor General, and guess what? The Governor General can do. It can sack the Prime Minister because the Governor General can do this. It's their right and they're answerable to the monarch, the British monarch.
Yeah, so officially, our king has to sign all the documents, all the laws that are set down by Parliament. But we have a constitutional monarchy, which actually means that, yeah, I mean, the Parliament is well in its rights to ignore those. So, I mean, that's what they will do. As there are sovereign states, and you see them making decisions that Britain doesn't always approve. So, I mean, or the United States. So, yeah, there we
No,
go.
no. I mean, look. I mean, just accept that Europe is occupied territory, occupied by Uncle Sam, and all its
Yeah.
leaders are just brainless nincompoops who are stupid enough to bite on a grenade if ordered to do so, and that's what they're busily doing now.
So
And if
are
it
you gonna say
becomes World
are you
War
gonna
Three, it's your own
what,
stupid
by the way,
fault.
I want to ask you something. So when Kanye West was talking about Hitler, so what do you think? You, you think Hitler is all bad, or you think he's mixed? It has redeeming qualities.
Well, he built the autobahn, didn't he?
Yeah, he invented the microphone. That's also something I heard Kanye West say.
Did
Yeah,
he?
see,
I don't know
there we go.
about that,
There we
but
go. There we
anyway,
go. There we
yeah,
go.
and Volkswagen, that's also a Nazi thing. Oh yes, and the New Year's concert from Vienna, that was Nazi too. Yes, so it wasn't all bad.
Who was playing at the time? Who was playing? Carl Orff, or who was playing?
I don't know.
But then you don't even know if it was good.
I don't know, but it was something the Nazis started to cheer people up. So
Wow,
so
great.
so
Yeah,
so
so
the
some Wagner, some Carl Orff, and then we're
I mean,
all
it's
happy.
usually the waltz, isn't it? They love
Forgetting
the
to
Strauss
plunge
brothers because
to
everybody
plunge
wants to.
Europe in a terrible war that they never even recovered from, and yeah, and to genocide a whole lot of his people. So
Well, I
yeah.
mean, you have to acknowledge your own history. It's like you've always been at war with each other. I mean, maybe that's why you're so good at war, because the wars of the Reformation, and yeah, there is a reason why the Americans America is called the New Rome, and I guess Europe is the old Greece, right? And the First and Second World War was the it's also been called the Second 30 Years' War. And that was pretty devastating, the first 30 Years' War. I mean, lots of Europeans were excused cannibalism because things were so bad for them.
Your point being,
My point being is that Christianity
yeah,
keeps the Europeans fighting, and they will eventually destroy themselves. And if the Americans don't become Muslim, it'll just get worse for you white
yeah. So
people.
then we will become just like the Muslim world, which is of course not any battle or struggle or
Well,
genocide at
if they're
all.
not
No.
that well off, it's because they are victims
Oh.
of Western
Yeah,
imperialism.
yeah, yeah. So you're just blaming everything on the West, everything on
Well, I'm
America.
trying to help you
No
guys.
personal responsibility for the people that live in these societies. Come on. So only like I mean, you're a bit like the woke thing. Only like white people can have responsibility for something, and people
Well,
who
if
are
you're
not
in
white
charge of
can't
three
have any
global Christian
responsibility. I mean,
empires,
that's absolutely
I'm afraid
that's
there is a
absolutely
bit of
it's absurd.
responsibility.
It's absurd that only white people can have responsibility for things,
Well, if you're in charge, then the blame will be laid at your doorstep.
but we are
Did
not
you
in
have
charge
your
of the Middle East. People in the sovereign states of the Middle East are in charge, and they're making a bloody mess. And people are
nonsense?
deciding there
The
to
Gulf
kill each
states have
other.
no
To
power.
kill
They're
each other.
just
Do you think really like the Houthis and the Tutsis and the fucking Shiites and the Sunnis? They all did it on instigation of the West.
yeah,
They
they
all
were just
hate each other
responding to
because of the
provocation
West.
and exploitation and
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And then people after after they come out of a oppressive regime, they just decided to kill each other. I don't know. That's their choice. That's their choice. They decided to plan these bombs. They decided to commit genocide on their neighbors. Yeah, that's what happens, and you can't.
yeah, that happens, and it'll be more peaceful under international secular, global secular
Yeah,
Quranism.
and then we have seen all this Quranism in these countries, and it hasn't
Yeah,
been
because
playing
they
out very
didn't
well.
do it my way.
Yes, and
Yes.
that's what the communists said as well. They didn't particularly do it as my particular communist sect, but every time
No, but
like that came into power, it was death and destruction as well.
okay, Conops, if everybody in the world adopts a secular Quranism, then international relations would be a lot smoother and more peaceful, and people
Yeah,
will
but
have.
that's
Okay, I
utopian. I mean,
propose an
it's
Islamic
crazy. For one thing,
European
not everybody's just
Union.
gonna adopt it. For one thing, that's just like if everybody adopts liberalism, there wouldn't be any opposing force to liberalism. Henceforth, it would be all peaceful. I mean, that's a ridiculous idea.
Well, the thing is, we are already under global liberal democracy because Francis Fukuyama wrote a book about the end of history, and he thought history had ended because everybody,
Well,
the whole
no, no, no,
wide
but
world is under our control,
yes,
practicing democracy.
but honey, listen, Fukuyama actually went back on his old conclusion, and he wrote an article. Is history back? So I mean,
Yeah. He took it back, but it is all
yeah,
part of
it
the
was a
Whig
fully utopian
interpretation
idea,
of history. Have you
and
heard of that
no,
book?
but you fail to understand what the end of history actually was as an article. So the end of history was not claiming that everybody is now under liberalism. It said there was not an ideological force against liberal democracy that had any credibility. I think that's actually he was wrong about that.
Yeah,
And
because there's Islam and
backtrack.
secular Quranism.
Yeah, because there's secular Quranism, exactly. Because there's secular Quranism. And on that beautiful note, I am gonna go and have a little glass of wine. I'm gonna chill. This was an interesting thing. Like to talk to you again, and then maybe next time about my own ideas, and then we'll have a great conversation. So
Yes,
thanks
yes.
so much, and
Thank you, and
thanks the viewer, and have a good night.
you too. Good night. Okay, Ricardo, you say you want to be on Koraniyule. Let me know. Let me know when you'd like to come. Have you got my email? I think you can find me on Hangouts, right? Well, how can I find you? Anyway, yes, of course you're very welcome, but if I don't have your contact details, it's hard to arrange. So yeah, anybody who'd like to come and have a chat, please do, and talk to you again soon.